All right, so I'm going to cover the information for mitosis and stem cells today for that additional focus area. So by the time we're done, you should be able to hopefully take that with success. All right, I'm just going to wait for Josie to get in here. There we go. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And then, of course, feel free to add a question to the chat or save questions for the end, and I will answer those too. So the big question to start off with is, why do cells divide? So there's several reasons. The one we might think of the most often is because we need new cells for some reason, growth or healing if you get injured. But there are a couple other reasons why cells divide. As they continue to grow, their DNA can only take care of a certain kind of range or size or space very efficiently. So it's kind of hard to control the cell as it gets larger. And it also, as the cell grows and gets larger, it makes it really difficult for it to get materials in and out efficiently. So think of getting enough food in and throughout the entire cell as it gets larger becomes kind of difficult. And then getting waste out in the same manner. So if you've got waste accumulating in a really large cell, it's harder to get that waste out efficiently as the cell gets bigger. So it's easier if we divide that cell in half and create two smaller cells. There's two types of cell division. There's mitosis, which is what this focus area hones in on. But then there's also meiosis, which is the reproductive additional focus area. But we're going to focus on mitosis, so growth and repair of your traditional cells, your non-reproductive cells. So skin, muscle, lung, liver, anything else you can think of that's not reproductive. So a cell goes through a general cell cycle, and that's listed here and is illustrated and then is also kind of phased out on the right. So cells start in interphase, and that's got three components, G1, S, and G2, and then go into M phase, which has two components, mitosis and cytokinesis. And we're going to come back to this image, and I'm going to break each of these down. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the DNA, which is one of the big things that we're going to be replicating and then splitting during mitosis. So that DNA, when we're using it, has to be open, more like the top part of the image up here. And if you've done structure of DNA, you kind of know it has this double helix structure, and it's made up of 4 different nitrogen bases that help to create a code. And so this code on here, we want to copy because we want the new cell that we're going to make to also have a copy of that DNA. But in order to efficiently divide it, we have to condense it down because this long open form of DNA would be really easy to get tangled and it could get broken. So we condense it all the way down through this winding and coiling process to create chromosomes. And that's what we're actually going to divide once it's condensed. So in that nucleus, we're going to go from having this loose DNA, which is chromatin, into chromosomes. And that is going to occur during the first part of preparation for cell division. And I'll kind of get into that in a minute. But I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of that and then bring up a few terms that I'm going to use so that you're familiar with what I mean when I use these terms. So chromatin is that loosely packed DNA that we're going to see during interphase. Chromosomes is that condensed or packed down DNA that we're going to see during mitosis and the stages of mitosis. Chromatid is a single chromosome. Often when we look at images of mitosis, we're going to see chromosomes in pairs, not singles. And so a chromatin is one copy of that paired chromosomes, and you can kind of see that down here in the bottom. It looks like an X. and that pair is called sister chromatids. So those sister chromatids, that pair of chromosomes, they're identical. So that's the copy that we're going to make in interphase. So just a couple terms that I'm going to be using so that you know what I'm referring to when I'm using them. One thing we should know, hopefully we know, and if we don't, we should go over it. When we're talking about cell division in humans, it's much more complex than what I'm going to show you in some of these images because we've got 46 chromosomes. So we've got a lot more than what the images are going to show. So it can be a little bit more complex, a little bit more compact. But I'm going to show just a couple chromosomes in the cells that we're looking at. But know that humans have 46. So when we actually duplicate, we're going to go up to 92 chromosomes until we split apart back into copied cells. So I'll kind of point the chromosome count out as we go as if we were talking about humans. So the cell cycle is going to start with one cell and end with two. This is mitosis. So the cells that we get at the end are going to be identical to each other and identical to that starting cell. And we're going to go ahead and come back to that graphic and break this down. So again, interphase is non-divisional. So the cells kind of live in its life. G1 would be the first growth phase. So the cell's going to grow to maturity. Think of it as kind of being an adolescent here, a teenager, and it's growing to full size. Once it reaches full size and kind of gets here, then once it gets a signal, a reason to divide, it will go ahead and prepare for that division. So it's going to prepare by going into S phase, which is when it copies its DNA. So it's a synthesis phase, making a copy. Once the copy of the DNA has been made, so this is going to be one single cell with two copies of every piece of DNA. So again, if this is a human cell, we're going to have, instead of 46 pieces of DNA, we're going to have 92 at the end of S phase. It's going to grow a little bit bigger in preparation for division in G2. It's going to make some extra organelles so that when it divides, this new cell has all the same organelles that the old cell has, but we need some extra copies in order for that to occur. So this is our last preparation. Once we get to the end of G2, the cell's going to go ahead and start dividing. So it's going to enter mitosis first, which is when it divides up the nucleus, which means it's dividing up the DNA. Then at the very, very end, it's going to go through cytokinesis, which is when it divides up the cytoplasm of the cell. So all the organelles are going to equally get split up, the liquid part of the cell, and the cell's actually going to divide in half. So I'm going to go ahead and break those stages of mitosis down. So the four main stages of mitosis are prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And there's a lot of acronyms or things you can use, mnemonic devices, to remember that. I usually just remember PMAT, or you can come up with kind of a silly saying to help you remember the order, like people, meet, and talk. You can come up with your own too, but it's kind of a good way to remember what the stages are. So I'm going to break each of those down. Prophase. What's going to happen is that loose chromatin that existed in interphase is going to condense down and form chromosomes. Because again, like I said, it's easier to divide up these tightly compacted chromosomes here than it is loose DNA. Think about trying to split apart a bowl of spaghetti without breaking or damaging anything. So it's a lot easier to do when we've got chromosomes. It also gives attachment points for these, what are called spindle fibers, that are going to help do the work of the cell division. The spindle fibers are attached to centrioles here. So to me, they kind of look like a spider, and the centrioles kind of like the body of the spider, and the spindle fibers are legs coming out of the spider. So that's usually what I see when I look at this. So these are moving to either end of the cell during prophase in preparation for division. In order for us to be able to divide the DNA in the nucleus, we've got to break apart the nucleus. if this nuclear membrane or envelope stays intact, then there's no way that we're going to be able to get these spindle fibers into the nucleus to grab onto that DNA and split it apart. So we also have to break down the nucleus at this point. Metaphase is going to line all these chromosomes up in the middle. Metaphase is one of the ones that's easiest for me to remember, middle metaphase. So all of those pairs of chromosomes, those sister chromatids, are going to line up in the middle. Those spindle fibers, you can kind of see them here, are attaching to the what's called the kinetochore. Not that you necessarily have to know that term, but this kind of central point on the chromosome where it looks kind of pinched together. And so that's where they're going to connect. They're going to connect and help them line up in the middle. And then in the next step, in anaphase, they're actually going to go ahead and pull and separate that sister chromatid pair into individual chromosomes or chromatids. And I know that it can get really confusing that there can be more than one correct name for the same thing in science, and I'm sorry about that. I don't make the rules. But again, this is a chromatid, or we can call it an individual chromosome. It's fine too, because it's been separated. So you can kind of see it's like a fishing pole. So that spindle fiber is kind of hooked onto the chromosome, and it's now reeling it into the either side of the cell. And that happens during anaphase. In telophase, which is the last part of mitosis, the division of the nucleus, this DNA, which has now been kind of moved to either side, is going to condense, and we're going to reform the nucleus. So that envelope's going to come back. You can kind of see here in this picture that my cell is starting to pinch a little bit. So the end of mitosis, telophase, does kind of overlap a little bit with cytokinesis, so it's common for them to be happening at the same time. So telophase will end before cytokinesis does. So once we've reformed that nucleus, we can finish cytokinesis. So these two cells are going to pinch off and form two identical cells. So we started with a cell that had 46 chromosomes. We copied the DNA. So we had 92 for a little while, but now we've split those two cells up into two identical cells that now both have 46 chromosomes again. And again, that's if we're talking about a human. If we're talking about something like a plant, though, this process is a little bit different. So since plants have cell walls instead of just cell membranes, and they're really tough and rigid, they can't pinch. So during cytokinesis, instead of pinching, we can see here we've got two nucleuses reformed. We're going to go ahead and build a cell wall down the middle of this long kind of rectangular plant cell to split it in half into two more square-shaped or at least smaller rectangle plant cells. So just kind of a side note that animal cells and plant cells, cytokinesis looks a little bit different. Okay. Now, the other part of this focus area is not just cells dividing, but cells becoming specialized or differentiating. So we're going to kind of go into how that works a little bit too. So if you think about this, we all started as one single cell. So a fertilized egg, which was a single cell. From that fertilized egg, over 200 different types of cells, so uniquely different types of cells like skin cells versus liver cells versus a heart cell versus a muscle cell or a brain cell, all developed out of that single fertilized egg, which was going through mitosis over and over and over again. And in total, from that one single cell, we end up with approximately 37 trillion cells in total in the human body, which is amazing. So how does that happen? Well, we know that we can make new cells through mitosis. So that fertilized egg is going to go through mitosis and go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4 and 4 to 8 and so on and so forth. But how do they become specialized? How do we get these different types of cells? So this works similar to our, our Play-Doh activity that we did. We started with our fertilized egg. We're going to go ahead and divide and make cells that we would consider totipotent. So these are stem cells. Stem cells can become more than one different cell or different type of cell in the body. And in this case, a totipotent stem cell can not only become a cell in the body, but can become a cell in the placenta as well, because we're talking about a developing embryo. These cells are going to continue to divide, and they're going to start to receive signals that are going to eliminate what they can become or give them essentially a job or an assignment. So as we continue to divide, some cells are going to receive a signal that says you are going to become the placenta and only the placenta. You must follow the placenta instructions. And then these other cells, which are now considered pluripotent, and they're pink here, can become any cell in the body, but cannot become the placenta. So they'll never be able to read the placenta instructions, which are encoded in the DNA. They continue to divide, and this little pink ball here starts to become these 3 different germ layers. So the yellow, red, and green now have become more specialized. Again, they've received signals that said, you've got to follow this particular set of instructions. You can't read these instructions on the DNA anymore. And they're considered multipotent. So we've got the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm, which are all going to become eventually different types of cells in the body. So these are still stem cells because they can read and follow more than one set of directions. But from here, they're going to become more and more specialized. So some of these cells will follow instructions that lead them to be a muscle cell, or an adipocyte, a fat cell, a cell in the bone marrow, or the bone itself, red blood cells, nerve, epithelia, which would be your skin, or an immune system cell, or even eventually maybe help make the sex organs and sex cells. And this whole while, this works through turning on and off genes in the DNA. So this single cell goes through cell division, copies itself, but then once it's been copied, it's going to get a signal that says you must follow these instructions to become an epithelial cell on the skin, and that's all you can do. So there's a big difference between just mitosis itself. Mitosis itself can happen in this epithelial cell, where it just makes another copy of itself and it's identical and it follows the instructions it's always followed. But when you do cell differentiation, you're going from an unspecialized cell, something that can do more than one thing, and you're limiting its choice. So you're now turning off some of that code and making it follow only one path. So that's kind of the fine line between mitosis, when I'm just making an exact duplicate of a cell and it's still going to follow the same job. So for instance, if I fall and I get injured, I'm going to use mitosis to make new copies of those cells that were already there and just replace them. But if I'm going to do cell differentiation, I'm going to do mitosis and then limit the choice of my cell. So this happens a lot in our bone marrow. So you have what's called hemopoietic stem cells, heme, in your bone marrow. And it's a stem cell and it's always staying a stem cell. So it will go through cell division like this. One of the cells will stay a stem cell and be able to follow multiple sets of instructions. The other will specialize into something like a red blood cell or a white blood cell or a platelet. So that's an example of cell differentiation instead of just mitosis and making an identical copy of the same cell that already existed. So that breaks down all the components of mitosis and stem cells. So I will happily stop sharing my screen and answer any questions that